Mm,
anytime the government is subsidizing something, it is automatically the price is going to go up. So
mm,
the idea, and it's very unfortunate that the American people have been miseducated to the point where they really don't understand anything. So they're never ever in position to act in their best interest, because the minute they said there was going to be a subsidy, everybody should have went cha-ching.
mm.
That's your clue that it's about to get more expensive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Linda B Show. Today, I have a special guest. We will be discussing the government shutdown and the reopening of the government. So, don't forget to like the video, comment, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Stick around to the very end. Now, my special guest, I'm going to welcome her to the show, Celeste Duffie of the Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. Her book, you guys got to check this out. Welcome to the show, Celeste.
Hey Linda, how you doing? Thanks so much for having me back. I had such a great time the last time I was here.
Oh, we always have fun. We would
Yes,
just kick back and relax, just be ourselves. So,
absolutely.
yes, guys, we're Celeste and I are dear friends. She's one of my newest friends, and she's just turned out to be such a swell person.
Oh, thank
But
you.
anyway, I wanted to talk to you about the government shutdown itself and also the reopening. There's a couple of things to unpack,
Hmm.
but I'm going to start off with the question of why were we in a government shutdown to begin with? Celeste, what are your thoughts?
So I think we were in a government shutdown because the Democrats have been hearing from the left wing flank of their base how dissatisfied they are with the way the Democrats are governing. And they wanted, and have been very vocal about the fact that they want to primary and that they are looking for people who have some more fight. They want somebody who can pose some opposition and stand up to the Trump administration. And I think what they thought that they could do was shut down the government and use the expiring Obamacare subsidies as a way to gain public sympathy for their shutdown activities.
Hmm. So the Democrat voters themselves are displeased with, um, I guess their party. So, it's interesting because you said they want someone with some fight in them to go up against the Trump administration. But and I okay, this is my problem with these folks here. Uh what are they fighting? The fact that we want a secure border, that we're bringing dividends in from tariffs, that crime is leaving as long as those local authorities work with, Trump and ICE to, try to get the illegals out. It's like, yeah, you're fighting up against what exactly? You know what I'm saying? Like the
No,
things that Trump pushes out, they do have merit, and in my opinion, they do benefit the American people when you talk about lowering crime, securing the border, getting the economy up and flourishing, and of course no tax on tips, and people are receiving stimulus checks from what I'm hearing. I mean, what are they exactly fighting against? Just to be fighting?
no. So Democrats don't know any of those measures that you've discussed. And even those who do know don't really care. They
Mhm.
are of the belief that Donald Trump is ushering an era of tyranny, that he is
Mhm.
becoming a despot,
Mhm.
and that what they want someone to fight for is to save the democracy that they believe he alone will kill.
Hmm. That's so interesting.
So when you talk about, crime, when you talk about lower, that inflation has gone from 9% to normal levels, which is somewhere about 3%. When you talk about effectively closing the border, and the number of illegal immigrants that have been deported, or who have self-deported, all
Mhm.
of those activities don't register
Mm,
in the face of becoming a tyrannical government.
hmm. That's crazy. I mean, this just goes to show that the country is divided because to me, what President Trump has proposed was more common sense, and what these people that seem to have TDS, perpetual TDS, and just want to, because when I listen to the Democrat politicians, they literally just boo-hoo, whine, and moan about what they don't like that Trump is doing, but they don't seem to themselves have anything substantial to offer other than what they call saving the democracy. You know what I mean? I'm like, what are you guys offering? I might, that's always my question. What you got?
Well,
You don't
right
say
now
only something, what you got?
yeah, well, right now they don't have any policies because they have to first save the democracy,
Oh
and then once
Lord
they
have
do that,
mercy.
they'll get some policies. But I just say to myself, they don't do propaganda because it doesn't work. I mean,
Mhm.
propaganda works, which is exactly why people invest lots of money and hire lots of talent, and have whole networks devoted to it, because it does work.
Mhm. It's all over.
Yeah.
Every network just about is a propaganda network. I mean, when you look at what they are spewing, and it took me a while back in the day, like probably when Obama was president or earlier, I said, wait a minute now. They're saying things that seem like it's not accurate, like in the whole racial division thing, when they only bring up a crime situation where the person, like a white police officer, may be unalived, a black unarmed person. That's when that happens, they would push that out into the media like a trillion times a day. But never, we don't hear anything about it when it's black on black crime, which is more so in the black community than white people. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, wait a minute, this is a bunch of BS. But I guess when you're talking about a lot of the people who vote a certain way or who may be thinking a certain way, to them is true, even though to us is like obviously not. So to them, they believe what those Democrat politicians are saying. Like when AOC gets out there and she starts screaming and yelling and circle around a question, not really answering it directly.
Mhm.
Um, that's enough for them. That's very unfortunate. I mean, that is so crazy
Uh,
because it's not accurate information. And you know what I'm saying? It's like it's not accurate and there's no policy. And they act like, you know what, I guess they don't even need policy if you got a portion of people who are just going to believe everything they say anyway, and they're not able to logically look at things and go, well, things were high under Joe Biden. Crime was bad under Joe Biden. They can't see,
they
you
didn't
know.
they didn't care when it was happening.
Mm,
They didn't care. I mean, we had a crime spike here in 2023. Most people, um, particularly, I mean, even at the local level, but definitely at the national level,
mhm,
where there was a crime spike. When you remember, shortly after, Joe Biden said on the debate stage that he was going to declare war on fossil fuels day
mhm,
one, and he did. He kept his promise, and he declared. And soon after, in the first 60, 90 days, the price of beef was going up, gas was sky high. People were talking about eggs were so high. None of, but if you had asked them, would you rather, change your vote, or do you care, or they don't.
now see, to me that's the problem because Anytime you are not looking at logic and facts and you're going with emotion, that is just problematic. You know.
These are very emotional people. Not all, obviously, not all, but
Hmm.
a large faction of
Hmm.
their voters are very emotional people. Lot of them women
Oh yeah.
who women typically prize safety above other virtues. And if you tell them you're about to be unsafe, this person is, I mean, this is how they can say things like, Donald Trump is gonna uh, 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 deport Black Americans. I mean, that sounds
I remember.
absolutely insane. There are people who running around the internet and otherwise absolutely believing that at some point the ICE or whoever is gonna immigration is gonna knock on their door. People who've been in this country for 6, 8, 9, 10 generations think that somehow their status is exactly equal to, because they've got them believing that
Hmm.
the country so despises them, and Donald Trump so despises them, and MAGA so despises them because they're Black, that they're going to be able to somehow take citizens and rip them out of the country and send them where I can't imagine where could they send them. I mean, where would we go?
Where would you? I don't
This
know.
is our home. Where,
I,
but if you were to ask them, they'll say, well, they don't care. They'll put us in Guantanamo. All of the someone sent me a text message that alligator Alcatraz, that they were going to stop building those all over the country to put Black people in. People believe just amazing amounts of wild stuff.
that's that reminds me of something that the liberal media and Democrats tend to do anyway, is they race bait or fearmonger using race. Because I heard someone in my family who I love dearly said, I'm afraid Donald Trump gonna deport me and send me to El Salvador.
First of all, El Salvador wouldn't take you. Okay, none of these countries will. I mean, you have to pay them, or
Mhm.
there has to be some incentive. But
Mhm.
most countries don't just wouldn't even allow you in. We're the only people opening up our borders saying, "Come one, come all."
I know, until
Most
recently. That is crazy.
most countries are not doing that. They understand that having people in their country is a responsibility, and
Mhm.
many of them can't handle the responsibility of their natural born citizens.
That's
They're
true.
certainly not looking to take a couple 100,000 of anybody else.
Oh Lord, we went all out, didn't we, under Biden administration? 15 or 20 million, some
And they
estimates.
were happy to send them. They were
Mhm.
happy to, because they were like, good, they not on our rolls. Go ahead and take them.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. But that is just what a lot of people respond to. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of Black Americans, primarily liberal Black Americans, are very emotional when it comes to ethnicity. How you get them to vote, keep voting the way they've been voting, is to just emotionalize, say, this person's going to do this to you. They're going to do this to you. So you got to vote for us. They're going to do this. And I think people just have short memories because those things never eventually happen. But I guess they move on to the next, hoax, and to the next one, and then it'll be another one, and then no one's keeping a tally of that. None of these things are actually coming to be, that you've got people afraid for no reason whatsoever, getting people blood pressure, getting their blood
Yeah.
pressure up and stressing them out. And they really, like you say, really, really think that these things are going to happen. But then they got to realize at some point, hello, it never happened.
Well, they're like that beyond their voting life. You can't take somebody who's rational and insane and makes good choices and good decisions in every area of their life, but they're irrational when it comes to voting. No, these are people that are already irrational in many other areas of their life. And what happens is politicians who are smart and charismatic and
Mhm.
are able to bait them in such a way that plays on the fact that they know that they're already weak and have difficulties in those areas, and then they can hook and reel them in.
Are you saying, Celeste, that there is a certain group of people in America that whenever they make decisions, they don't use logic, they use emotion, that certain trigger words will actually grab them and pull them in. And not to mention a couple of fake experts, throw that in as a bonus. You're saying that we have people like this in America today in 2025?
I'm saying even worse than that. I'm saying the life is the check. If
Oh,
you
yes.
if you want to know how somebody thinks, you simply watch how they live,
Mm-hmm.
because their thinking, their behavior is the result of their thinking. So if you have a life that's chaotic, that's, that sometimes is going well and then falls off the rails because of decisions that you are making,
Mm-hmm.
that's making those things happen, then sure, it's
Mm-hmm.
not surprising to me that some slick snake oil salesman politician can reel you in. Look, the car mechanic can reel you in. The guy you're dating can reel you in. The church you attend can reel. You get
Mm.
reeled in all over the place. So they're just
Sure.
one of many.
Oh my gosh, we gonna ooh, the churches, that's really bad. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna play this clip.
Churches with these apostate preachers who are absolutely preaching social gospel and God knows whatever else that we can clearly see is anti. You've been reeled in. Your life
That's
is
true.
the check. We can figure that out about you as soon as we examine your life.
Wow. So that clearly there's enough people out there in the world that are like that. And I hate to say it. Yes, we all know some that are rather close to us, and they will fall for the jackleg, bootleg, pulpit pimp preacher. They fall for him, and then they'll fall for some other things like the guy who can't keep a job and he's got children all over the place, and that is just a symptom of what is going on with that person, and that symptom just seems to resonate in all areas of their life,
Yeah,
not just politics.
and then they go to that preacher, and the preacher tells them to pray, for their significant other of their spouse, instead of saying pray that you get the strength to make a better decision.
Exactly. This is just right. You hit the nail on the head, honey. But yes, President Trump, I'll play this little clip right here so you can see this, but I'm sure you've seen it already. You've seen this. President Trump is basically opening up the government, which is great to open up the government because, people needed their paychecks and whatnot. So here we go.
With my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans. Again, costs are way down. Energy is way down. Gasoline is at $2.50 a gallon versus $4.70 for the Democrats. And we think we're going to hit pretty close to $2 a gallon. That's like a really massive tax cut. It's the equivalent of that. And speaking of tax cuts, our great, big, beautiful bill is giving everybody in our economy, middle income workers, low income, everybody, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And it's no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and very importantly, no tax on overtime. You work overtime, there's no tax. That's among the things that add up to the biggest tax cut in history. One other thing, you hear about rich people with deductions. Well, when you buy your car and you borrow money, you're allowed to now deduct the interest on that loan. So you can take that interest deduction and what you can take is that interest payment and deduct it for income tax purposes. That's a tremendous tax cut right there. But it all includes fixing the healthcare system that Democrats broke with the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare was a disaster from day one. It's done nothing but go up. And if you remember President Barack Hussein Obama, when he came up with this crazy idea, he said everything's going to be great rates are going to go down, payments are going to go down, everything's going to go down. It went the exact opposite with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country.
Obama thing, Obamacare, which brings me to something else. Obamacare. How big of a scam was that?
I said on another show that the Affordable Care Act, what we call Obamacare, is the biggest circle jerk ever perpetrated on the American people, and it's really sad. First of all, we could start in a whole bunch of places. It was so disastrous, but we're going to first start with this. This is a bill that was in excess of 1,000 pages, in which Nancy Pelosi told her caucus that they had to sign the bill. They had to vote for the bill and pass the bill so that they would know what's in it. So none of the representatives who were there at that time are accountable for having changed the entire 1/6 of the American economy, which is what the healthcare industry represents. It's 1/6 of the private economy. For having altered 1/6 of the private economy, they have no accountability for that because none of them had read the bill. I mean, that goes to show you the level of insanity that was going around at the, with Obama. And because I believe, because he was the first Black president, and because he was, there was so much fanfare and excitement around his candidacy and his presidency, that it was almost even the media. I mean, nobody said, wait a second, we're passing 1,000 page bill that no one has seen. Remember, they had this crazy thing where it was going to be kept in a room and you could go into the room for 1 hour. You had to show your ID. You couldn't take pictures. You couldn't take cameras. You couldn't, and you could do as much reading, I suppose, as you could do in 1 hour. And that was it. It was an insane. First of all, we should have been extremely skeptical from the outset, because anything
Mhm.
that requires
That
that
many
much
pages.
clandestine fanfare to pass can't be any good.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and it was also, in my opinion, money laundering, because a lot of times when these politicians, they seemingly are overwhelmingly Democrat, but it could be any party, pass something, the name doesn't actually fit what it is. It's called the Affordable Care Act. I talked to a friend who actually has Obamacare, and the first time she got it under Obama, it was $800 a month. That is anything but affordable. We're talking about one person.
Mhm.
Okay, $800 a month. That is expensive. I don't care what anybody says. When Trump comes in, he lowers it, and she was paying $156 a month. A drastic. And I had to ask her, because I never had Obamacare. I said, well, I know somebody who does. I want to talk to somebody who can literally tell me, so I'm not repeating talking points off the lamestream news. And
Mhm.
then Biden comes in and changes it again, but sets it up to expire. And then I asked her, like, why did Biden set it up to expire if Trump had already changed it to make it more affordable? And that was the part where she said, she didn't know, because she wished she could be a fly on the wall to understand why they made it so it would intentionally expire. I'm sure you have thoughts on why it was, again, something for political expediency, but at the end of the day, the money was going to health insurance companies from the taxpayer, tons of money,
Yes.
like hundreds of billions of dollars going to health insurance companies. But I want to hear, your response to, like, why was there an expiration date put on it? I know it was political, but you know.
So it's a win-win. The expiration dates, certainly, during Biden's term, they had an opportunity to make the subsidies permanent. I don't
Mhm,
know that they could have passed that,
mhm,
but they didn't even pursue it.
mhm,
The win-win for the exploration is, if they win, if they had won in 2024, so
mhm,
it's set to expire in 2025.
mhm,
If they had won the Congress and or the presidency, then they could have had a better shot to make it permanent or to do whatever they wanted with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the second win, so that's the first win. The
Mm-hmm.
second win in the win-win is if the opposing party wins, then they can use it as leverage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, which is what they did. So they were just thinking about, because they're very, one thing I will say about the Democrat Party, they're pretty ingenious and they tend to work lockstep. You know, they pretty much don't have any defectants, hardly ever. It's every now and then they really go after that person like really, really bad. But I was wondering about that. I was like, okay. And so again, it was a money laundering thing. Okay. And Obama, I found out, was getting $2.5 million a year off of all of this.
Not shocking.
Hmm?
I said that's not shocking. I didn't know that, but that's not
Two and a
enough.
half million a year.
I
So
would I would think they would give him something. You know what I mean? He
of
should have
course.
done like Trump did with his buildings on the West Side Highway. He should have licensed his name. You know what I mean? Because I think it's his name that
Mhm.
passed that bill. He should have said, if you want the use of my name, here's what it costs. It just
I know, right? But yeah, it's
sounds
a
good.
but again, this money laundering thing over something that sounds good, but it never does what it says it's going to do. It's a bunch of talk. Oh, I'm going to save you this. Or you can keep your plan. You can keep, your costs will go down. The only thing that you have to be concerned about is not anything because your costs are going to go down. I mean, none of that stuff ended up actually being true.
And we knew that though. Well, I should say this. The at even at the beginning, the one thing that we know is that and I mentioned this also on another podcast. Mitt Romney, when he was running for president, said that all subsidy is a tax on the middle class. That is 100% true. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't care if government decides to get into the business of the fair distribution of lipstick. The price of lipstick is going up. It does not matter what it is. Anytime the government is subsidizing something, it is automatically the price is going to go up. So
Mm-hmm.
the idea, and it's very unfortunate that the American people have been miseducated to the point where they really don't understand anything. So they're never ever in position to act in their best interest, because the minute they said there was going to be a subsidy, everybody should have went cha-ching.
Mm-hmm.
That's your clue that it's about to get more expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember former President Ronald Reagan said the nine worst things you can hear is, "Hi, I'm the government and I'm here to help."
Yes, yes.
You know, and that just keeps ringing so true. It's just like the government, every time it gets its hands on anything, and now it just seems like the Democrats are headed that way. They're calling themselves Democratic Socialists. Um, with this Mamdani guy, with
They've
AOC.
been doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
AOC,
mhm,
AOC, that whole class, AOC,
mm,
uh, uh,
Bernie,
Ilhan Omar,
mm,
what's her name? Talita
Rashida
yeah,
Tlaib,
Rashida Tlaib,
mm,
um, all of them, the black woman, who shaved her head.
Ayanna Presley.
Ayanna Presley, yes, who had all that racked up all that money in
Mm,
security fees, as she was saying, defund the police. All of those people were Democrat socialists. They that
mhm,
so that wave. I mean, they renamed them the Squad so that
mhm,
they didn't have to make the American public confront the socialist aspect of their candidacies and their congressional positions.
mm. I think what Americans would, well, you're always going to have some people that are not going to study and can be tricked and can be manipulated. Unfortunately, that's true. But it will do Americans so much good if we all would educate ourselves on how things work and what certain terms mean, what it means when someone says subsidy, government subsidy.
Okay.
When you hear that, oh, let me back the heck up now because you're going to try to sell me something real good. But at the end of the day, it is not good. It's going to be more expensive, and I have less control. I have less, just everything that's good about health insurance. You won't be getting any of that. You're just going to get high prices. and more government control. All right, that's what you're going to be getting. But that is just so crazy that we have been really, I hate to say it, lied to. And for the 92%, you know, we ain't the 92%, but for the 92% that votes that way, what advice would you give? I already know what you're going to say, but I'm going to just answer the question, ask the question anyway. What is your advice to people who vote blue no matter who without doing any homework? What would you tell them?
To keep on keeping on.
See, I knew you was gonna say something like that. I knew you was gonna say, well, they gonna do what they gonna do anyway. So
Yeah, I don't I'm not sure. I don't know this to be true, but I'm very interested. I'm not sure that I think that the Democrats really have enough for a national election, and I feel like they act and they govern almost like petulant children. And so
hmm
I don't think the conversation should be with the child. The conversation is with the parent.
hmm
That's where you need to direct your focus with the parent. I don't know that you need to just to try and talk to these children. I mean, well,
and I've got to say, you the way they govern is no policy, and that is the crazy part to me. I'm looking at lack of policy, but fear mongering and word salads.
well,
And,
they have an agenda.
well, of course, they have an
And they
agenda.
do have a policy. It's not that they have no policy. It's that their policy is not something that they publicly discuss because they really don't want anyone to know what their policy is. They actually have policy. They have no interest in their voters knowing what their policy is because they do not want to put their voters in a position to have to, one, understand it, and God forbid, two, defend it because they know they can't.
hmm I
And that's
what I
why they won't debate.
And what I mean by policy, what I mean by policy is anything that is of benefit to the actual voters. Anything that's of benefit, I don't think they have. And yeah, they got something down, but it's not, they don't
Yeah,
even want the
no,
voters to know.
the policy is everybody has a policy is subjective. They
hmm
have objectives. They
hmm
have a reason that they want open borders. They
Of
have a
course.
reason that they want universal health care.
hmm
They have a reason that they want the teachers union to be entrenched in failing schools. They
hmm
have a reason that they want to defund the police and they want to eliminate cash bail and other. But this is they are systematically trying to. If you look in cities that are governed by Democrats and
hmm
states that are governed by Democrats, they
hmm
are systematically pushing policy. They have policy. They don't discuss their policy with the likes of me and you.
Well, that's what I mean. Their policies are not beneficial.
No.
None of their policies are beneficial to me. Every single one of their policies actually remind me of like communism, to bring in chaos, lawlessness, uneducated people that are dependent on the government, not people who are entrepreneurial in spirit, dismantling of the family. There's so many things about them, the Democrats, that in my mind, everything, everything, and it's been this way for decades, it's been this way a long time. Everything has been done in my mind to control, to manipulate, to keep money in the top 1% pockets, even though they say they're for the working class, they clearly are not. Um, and none of the policies that they have are beneficial. So that is just the point that I'm making, that I don't see any benefit for just regular folks that go voting every 2 to 4 years. Like, what's the benefit for us just to keep bringing in people that have government dependency and indoctrination camps in the public schools and crime running rampant and cashless bail, and then making everything about race. If you say something against somebody black and they committed a heinous crime, well, you're just saying that because you're a racist. they can yell that to turn the attention away off of what they're really doing. Just call the other person a racist.
I'm not going to recommend you, Linda,
Hmm.
for membership in the party. I can see now that you won't be a good member. So that list you just recited, no, yeah, you're not going to be a good member. I know lots of Democrats. I've known all my life. I've lived in blue spaces and in states and places. So I mean, almost everyone I know, everyone I'm around, wonderful people, uh, certainly, and it is most of them very successful,
Hmm.
very well educated, just highly accomplished, all of that. But if you were to bring any of the list that you will bring up, it's very cosmopolitan to say, I don't really know anything about politics. I don't know about that. It's just
Hmm.
it's not these are never, ever, ever, ever conversations. The only thing that is in fashion to say is how bad Trump is.
Oh yeah.
That's it. There's never anything else discussed.
Oh, that is the part that kind of bothers me, because we do have a decent president in my mind when I see the things that are being done, but we could all be on board and united and happy rather than half the country being ticked. You know what I mean?
It would be nice if but the truth of the matter of
Mm.
that is that's somewhat against human nature.
Mhm.
And to a certain extent, some division is good. Now, what you always want an opposition. A good opposition is what should keep you non-corrupt and honest. If you know, hey, my opposition's out there, so I've got to play this thing straight down the middle,
Mhm.
or else eyes are on me and people will be watching. That's where opposition is good. Opposition that is just aimless and feckless and crazy and irrational. I mean, from the inception of this country, we have
Mhm.
always had opposite sides. I mean, from
Mhm.
it took us years to even get a constitution, because there was so much infighting on every provision of the constitution. And you know what, it made it great. All of that infighting is what created the document that we actually got. So it's not bad, even opposition that's spirited. The
Mhm.
problem is our opposition now, back at the time of the Constitutional Convention, the goal was always to form a country. So people who were opposed still had the same goal. The problem with our opposition now is that we are two groups of people that have two totally different goals that occupy the same geographic space and have to share the same currency. And it's a little bit of a disaster, and sort of the conditions that you start needing for soft civil wars, when these conditions can be exaggerated and fuel can be poured onto the fire.
Mhm.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, definitely, we seem to definitely have a little more than half the country voted for President Trump. The other, little less than half voted for Kamala Harris. And we'll see what happens in the midterms and eventually in 2028. I think they may be looking at AOC and on the ticket somewhere. We'll see. We shall see. But you know what?
Wouldn't you love to see an AOC Vance debate? Oh my God. I would love to see that.
It will be so good. Now he is very methodical, calm. He doesn't get too rattled, and he makes a lot of sense. And I just can't even imagine her being able to keep up. Somebody gonna get mad at me
I
saying,
I would really, really like to see that debate. I'm not sure the Dems are going to put AOC up. A lot of who they put up is really going to depend on what happens in the midterms.
yeah.
AOC is going to be a difficult, the problem for political parties, which is great, which is that the person who wins the primary may not be the person who can win the general. So
Yeah.
you get somebody that your side likes and is willing to back wholeheartedly, but is also attractive to people other than your side.
Ah,
So,
I don't see her appealing to anybody more common sense side.
well, probably not, but that also depends on what condition the country is
Mhm.
in when it's time to vote. If the country's in a protracted war,
Mhm.
if for some reason there is a let's say for instance a housing crisis,
Mhm.
or these are the things that can really sort of shift the winds, and what could be an easy crit walk for Republicans can become an uphill battle. So I mean, vigilance and really um a good person, good leadership at the helm, who's actually watching out for these headwinds, because these are the things that can tank what may in fact be a historical presidency.
Mm. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, Celeste. And yes, she wrote a book, The Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. You guys have got to check it out. I put the link in the description. And I will see you next time, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, I can't wait to come back, Linda. Please have me again.
I sure will. Have a good one, girl.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, everyone. That was my friend Celeste Duffie, The Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. Guys, you have to check out her book. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Linda B Show. Don't forget to like this video, comment, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and select all notifications. You all be blessed, and until next time.